The culture wants us to think that we can do it on our own. You ever had that feeling? You can do it on your own? How's that worked out? I've struggled, and I really struggled mightily when I got cancer in 2019. And with that, I realized that I couldn't raise my child. I had to live my life in a hospital bed. I had to live my life connected to a chemotherapy bag, pumping in Folfox and oxaliplatin into my body every day. And I had to give up the idea of raising my child. But you know what? That story, that suffering was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this week for the Speakers Collaborative studio session. The Speakers Collaborative is an event where we put on monthly to get those who want to be on stage. And one of our alums from this most recent event is my really great friend, Peter Milner. Peter and I go back decade, maybe more than that. And
decade and a half.
Decade and a half. We
Yeah.
go back decade and a half, and I'm excited. I'm excited first that Peter is alive.
Yeah, same.
I'm excited that Peter and I have known each other for so long, and I'm excited that Peter joined us in May at the Speakers Collaborative. You can see his work at thespeakerscollaborative.com, and I'm really excited that Peter is joining us today for the studio session. So, Peter, who are you? Where are you?
I'm an entrepreneur in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've lived here since 2001 and have gone through many travels. I'm on a pilgrimage, Cody, as you know, and you have been a part of mine and I've been a part of yours, and I'm thankful for it. And I've got 2 children, live here in Raleigh, and loved the opportunity to share with you and with other friends the other day. Thank you for allowing that to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Peter, tell us an interesting fact about yourself.
Well, I'm the third son of a third son of a third son, which makes me, I was going to say something that's probably not okay to say on live TV, but makes me full of it. Cody. So, but at the same time, very loved by my dad. My father passed away a year ago, and that was why I couldn't speak at the first Speakers Collaborative, but I came back the second year, and was thankful to share, be a part of that evening.
Are the 3 in front of you also 7 feet tall?
Pretty much, yeah. 5'19", as I like to say. Every day I have someone come up to me in Starbucks and say, can I interrupt you? They're like very apologetic for some reason. Can I interrupt you? How tall are you? And so I've come up with all these different phrases, but my best is that I'm 5'19".
We should make you a name tag. Just Peter Milner, 5'19".
It's like the realtor name tags, you know, it's like,
Speaking of real estate, you're also a realtor.
I'm a realtor, and I've just sent in a deal today for a property in Chapel Hill. Hopefully we're going to get it for my friend who runs an anxiety clinic. It's really incredible, ADHD clinic. And I think we're going to perhaps get the building. And that I love that because I love building businesses. I love coming alongside people and hearing their story and promoting their story. I'm kind of a big promoter. I promote you. I promote myself. I promote my children. So yeah.
Just an all-around good guy. Tell us, what do you speak on?
I spoke on 3 things. I spoke on how to tell our stories, and I spoke on the importance of getting your journal out to write down your story. I spoke on how God gives us ambassadors. The universe sends us people that will walk through life with us, as small as a man in McDonald's or as a child that teaches you how to love. Yeah. And then the third thing is that we're going to suffer, and that our suffering is our roadmap to healing. I believe that our suffering is our greatest ability and possibility of rousing a deaf world. Pain rouses a deaf world. And if we can share our suffering, well, you don't have to be alone. We can actually share it with others, and we can go on this journey, this pilgrimage of life. Because I know that for me, I've struggled with mental illness a lot. And a lot of that mental illness is just mental thinking that is skewed and warped. And it's like, I'm alone in the universe, and I'm wrong when I think that, because I'm just not. And we have to normalize. We have to normalize feeling alone, but then encourage each other to go out and be in community, which is what we were made to be in.
Man, that's really good. We this, you might. Our community locally was impacted this last week with another man taking his own life. And I think what you say is really important, Peter, that even when you feel alone, you're not alone. And it's real easy for me to say, call 988, call a friend, call me. It's harder for me to say, I haven't heard from you, I'm calling you.
Yes.
And it's really important that you know who to call. It's really, you know, that you have people there for you. It's just as important, if not more, to not put all the burden on the person suffering. And so we need to make sure as a community that we are not just there to take the call, but we're making the call. So check on your friends, check on your colleagues, check on people who may not be your friend, but you may not have seen in a while. Just check in and say, miss you. I've missed seeing. That's really oftentimes the interrupter is what they need.
Yeah, and we have to take time in our business lives to pause and be interrupted and check in with people that we might be doing a real estate deal on. You never know who you're actually going to tap. And one day I was in Starbucks, and a guy said he was having a hard day, and I got his number. And later that day, he told me he was suicidal. And I went to the Starbucks, picked him up, and took him in. And I was like, screw this, man. I am where the buck stops. And I can put it off on someone else, which is what we always do. We're like, oh, they'll take care of it. Oh, social services will take care of it. The church will take care of it. No, we sometimes need to take care of it.
That's right. That's right. All right, Peter, you went through the first Speakers Collaborative process with us. You mentioned you went through the process up until right before we went on stage, really. And then you did what you needed to do, what you should have done, which was when you spent some time with your father. And then you went through the process again with us in May and ended up on your stage. Thankfully, I'm glad you were finally up there. Tell me, that was just a month ago or 2 months ago. I know it feels like last year, but what has gone on in your life since the Speakers Collaborative?
I feel like, Cody, that I didn't struggle with authenticity before then. I really, I think, share my pain pretty openly. But I think it almost opened up a deeper space for me to share with my friends where I am. So it gave myself permission to do what I was telling myself to do. You know how we sometimes preach to the choir and we're preaching to ourselves. And so I think it's been almost like me allowing me to lead myself. And so I'm leading myself into being more transparent, to sharing my suffering. And I was with a friend the other day, and I was like weeping next to her. And I was like, thank the Lord that I have got this companion that's sitting with me and hearing me talk about this. But also I was thankful that I had the courage to do what I was telling myself to do from the stage. And I was kind of living into it. So I feel like I've become more myself in the last month. I know that sounds strange, but
I feel like once you're on stage and you say it for the world, we live stream our events. So you never know how many people are watching. Well, you do, but not at the time. And so it's, once you've said it out loud, you might as well keep going, right? Once you've teared up on stage, which you and I both did, We might as well just keep going. So tell me, so we have a process at the Speakers Collaborative. We meet a few times ahead of time. This last time we got together and practiced with our fellow collaborators.
Yeah.
What of that entire process from start to post party, what's your most memorable part of that?
Being on stage. Being on stage, because it was the albatross on my back, and all the other stuff was important, but actually being on stage created, when you throw a rock in a lake, it sinks to the bottom and it doesn't stand on the top, but there's a lot of waves that come out from that rock that you throw in the lake. So getting on stage was like me jumping to the bottom of that lake, and the ripples came out. And my colleague and mentor used to say that grief is like ripple waves, and grief touches grief, touches grief. So being on stage was a way for me to grieve. And I know that sounds strange, but I'm a chaplain, Cody, so I have to speak in grief language. And I think being on stage was like a way for me to deal with my grief and a way to share my story. So being on stage was huge. And it's almost like a really, really good drug, because I want more of it. I want to get back on stage again. You're smiling. You're like, yes, he said what I wanted him to say.
It's not even on the paper.
Yeah, I just can't say enough I've got a friend that I think she needs to get on stage to share her story. And funny thing is, Cody, I didn't share the story I was expecting to share. I mean, I shared an outline of it kind of, but I was expecting to talk about mental illness that night. And I didn't even mention really mental illness. I focused on my cancer. I focused on a friend that came to see me when I had cancer. But
you didn't say the words outright. But I think part of the beauty of what you said was it spoke to the need for healing and the need to grieve, as you just said. And I've got years of healthcare law background. And I think the one thing we all in the universe of healthcare have come to realize is mental health is health.
Yes.
Mental health should be addressed in a healing manner, just as I do cancer and just as I do a broken limb. Mental health is health. So I think you did.
Thank you, my friend.
And I think you did a great job at it. I was really excited that you were up there. Again, I think to your point, it gives somewhere in the process, somebody finds their sea legs. And sometimes it's not until right when you're on stage with that. It's fascinating to me that you said that, because your background is in preaching.
Yes, I know.
It's hilarious that your background is in preaching. You've been on a stage, you've been behind a podium, you've been at a microphone, you've addressed legislative bodies. Yet getting on the stage at the Speakers Collaborative is different because, one, we don't allow props.
Nope.
Right? You didn't have notes. You didn't have a podium. You didn't have PowerPoint. You had nothing to rely on but your own words. And I think that's different. But also, you weren't sharing a message that you gleaned from Scripture or that was intended to point to a certain method or lesson. You were talking from your heart.
I was.
And that's Peter,
go ahead.
I was going to say that the beauty of what I have seen grow out of this cockamamie idea of mine, not only are we giving the stage to people who need the material to market themselves and to launch and to speak again and to get a taste of that drug that you're just talking about, but because you shared that healing story, somebody else heard it. And I love, this is a fun thing to say. Your story isn't unique.
Yes.
It's a story that has been told millions of times.
Yes.
But it's never been told by you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never been heard by the people that heard it from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, where we need to focus the Speakers Collaborative. What I want to do now, Peter, is the same thing I do every week. And that is I want to turn the stage over to you. I want to give you 5 minutes to share an update, share from your heart. Give our audience a little bit more of Peter, more than they can find from your 15 minutes of fame at the Speakers Collaborative, which, by the way, the Speakers Collaborative is available on YouTube at the Speakers Collaborative and at thespeakerscollaborative.com. But right now, I'm going to leave the stage, and Peter, I'm going to give you the floor for a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Cody. I was thinking about this 5 minutes, and I remember getting nervous about it because I struggle with anxiety. My son struggles with anxiety. And the way I typically deal with it is by diversion. And I guess there's good diversion and bad diversion. A good diversion for me was going and playing basketball every day. And my father and I and my brothers would go and play every day up in the old gym at Wake Forest University. And we would take on Tyrone Bogues, who's a fella that's 5'3", and we would take on Delaney Rudd and Sam Ivey, all these kind of Wake Forest legends. And these guys trained me on how to be a good basketball player. And it was like a good way to deal with anxiety was through playing basketball. But then there's bad ways of dealing with anxiety. And I've borne the brunt of that and have at times in my life not been able to keep myself together. And I remember back in 1997 when I had a mental break, I was so filled with anxiety because my girlfriend at that time, her name was Lee, was going on an airplane and she was flying over to London. So I was nervous she was going to die. And my brother was like, Peter, if you pray enough, you can actually change God's mind. And I was like, okay, sure. We'll see about that. And so I prayed. And that night, a peace came into my life that I had never known. And that peace cooled and calmed all of the anxiety that I had had my whole life up until then. And it just dropped like a pebble, a rock in a lake. And that peace is the kind of peace that I yearn for and long for. And that is actually the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's the kind of peace that is the anti-anxiety peace. They can come through basketball. It can come through journaling, and it can come through a conversation with a friend at a table. Or I went to the beach this weekend and jumped into the ocean and swam into the waves. And it reminded me of my childhood with my cousins. I had 22 cousins that would meet every summer, and we go to Pawleys Island and we would swim. And when we would swim, it just brought me so much joy. And joy and anxiety and peace are kind of two sides of the same coin. So if you are feeling anxiety right now, I'm glad you're here to think about what you run to in terms of your anxiety and what you can run to. You can run to peace, and I would encourage you to run to peace. And one of the ways of running to that peace is through journaling and through knowing that God does send you friends, and also that your suffering that you've experienced is actually a part of the plan. And you don't have to forsake it. You can cry about it, but you also can know that it will be used. And not just used. My friend Matt Womble talks about the problem with saying that it's going to be used, because we're not utilitarian people. We're actually human beings. So we're more than just things to be used. And I think he's right. But we are going to be used because we can comfort others with our suffering. We just can. And that is good news, that we can comfort others through our suffering. Cody, you're back. But yeah, I just shared about anxiety and suffering. And
yeah, you can keep going if you want to. I had my therapist one time, counselor, I don't know what we called him. A lot of times when we see the scripture, bear one another's burdens, we forget that it's a mutual thing. That it's not just, it's not me bearing just yours. It's me letting you bear mine. And
Mm, mm,
I think that's a great way to look at humanity. When we go about it as alone, as I'm
mm.
going to take everything because I'm strong and I can, eventually you fold, right? Eventually you break.
Yeah, and since I've been theologically trained at all these crazy seminaries, I just have to say that I think a part of that is as we reflect on this God that we call God, God is actually a community. And so if God is a community, then how can we assume that we can get through life alone?
That's
Like
right.
that's like we are made in the image of a community. So we are actually in our DNA a community. And the more I'm living out of that with you, Cody, and with our friends down at the legislature, the more that I'm going to be in tune with the God that made everything.
It's really good.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of comments come in. So Brian Jodis is a really good friend of mine. In fact,
Oh,
he was our producer. He really enjoyed
oh,
hearing you and meeting you at the last collaborative.
oh, thank you, Brian.
He also said that we're looking good. I mean, obviously,
Yes.
and
Yeah. Come
he's
on.
looking forward to more. My good buddy Keith Billis from Canada. Keith produces a daily talk show on YouTube. I think everybody should check him out. Check him out on LinkedIn and then check him out in his live show. I've been on there a couple of times. He's got some solid content.
Huh.
And yeah, anyway, thanks, Keith. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody who's watching. Peter, I know that you read a lot, and you recommend some good books. What are you reading these days?
The Men We Need by Brant Hansen. It's about how men need to take responsibility for their lives and they need to tend the garden, which they were called to tend to. And the garden is the vulnerable. And you don't have to go out and kill a deer to sort of convince people that you're men. Maybe what it can mean to be a man is to go out and care for the vulnerable, care for people that are struggling, because we're all struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. But that's okay. We were designed to struggle together, as he was just saying. Brant Hansen is an amazing author. Have you read Unoffendable?
No, but I've heard about it. And
from me. You need to
I heard about it from you. That's right.
You need to read it, especially in this current political climate. Unoffendable. I would highly recommend everyone, whatever you're reading, finish it and get Brant Hansen's Unoffendable.
Yeah.
The reason I read it, ironically, is I was looking for the Men We Need at the library and they didn't have it, but they had Unoffendable. So I picked that in my quest to not add any more books to my life.
There's one more I've got to mention that is called, oh gosh, it's going out of my mind. Jeez Louise. I've got, my brain is overly active, which is a part of my issue. But this book is called Lit. It's called Lit, and it's a 7 Enneagrams guide into neuroplasticity and how we can use our daily rituals to get more efficient as people.
Okay.
And he spawned off 8 or 9 companies. He's a bioscientist out of Baltimore, and he wrote a book called Lit, and it's really helpful. Lit.
Awesome. Peter, do you? I'm going to come back to this one. What would you recommend for people on the fence about being a public speaker and doing the Speakers Collaborative?
Give me a call at 919-793-3732 and get your ass out there.
That's right. Get your ass out there, says the chaplain. So I'll be honest, we're recruiting people for our Texas show right now. Anybody in Texas, Oklahoma, that area, we're going to be there August 27th.
Yeah.
With spots left.
Do you really? So I could fly out there and do it?
You fly out and do it all you want to, buddy. So yeah, August 27th. Anybody who's interested, DM me, call me, whatever, email me, info@thespeakerscollaborative.com. I don't want to miss an opportunity to get you on my stage. Peter, what questions do you have for me?
I am just wondering what do you feel like you're being invited into next with this? Like what are you being invited to? Because at first you did this to tell your story, and now you're learning that you have been there to build a stage for others. Is there anything new that you're learning?
I mean, I'm still marinating on that, building the stage for others.
Yeah.
Because it's such a new realization for me.
Yeah.
Right. And not only that is the new realization, but what else I can do to elevate other people. Honestly, it sounds selfless, but it's the most selfish thing I can do, because the feeling that I get, the fulfillment that I get and seeing other people shine, it's much better than any drug.
It must have given you a kick to do that for all 6 or 7 of us that night.
It was amazing. And
you had such different stories. You had a guy who was like right in college. You had me, that you knew my story. You had all of us that were.
I did. Yeah. And I challenge everybody to think about this. We live in a time where we're surrounded with people who say exactly what we hear, and not exactly, who say exactly what we say. We surround ourselves, because of whatever you want to call it, the algorithm or whatever. We are funneled into messaging that is consistent with what we say. But the Speakers Collaborative is completely different than that, because we do not curate the content. So we have 6 speakers on stage who talk from their hearts about their thing. You may have somebody giving business advice. You may have somebody like me who's giving a talk on crisis proofing your life.
Yeah.
You'll have Sean, who talks about recovering from cancer.
Yes.
You'll have Jillian, who talks about slowing down and saying no to grow. You'll have every different conversation. And in one night, you'll realize that community, that your life is bigger. So from an audience perspective, it is liberating for your mind to realize that there are people out there who you never thought about their perspective.
Last question.
Yeah.
If you think of us each as clients, which we kind of are, of yours, what do you think is the number one thing that you're learning about being a client care provider?
You have to meet your clients where they are.
Okay.
But you don't have to leave them where they are.
Oh.
Because I say all along, if you come to me to be in the Speakers Collaborative and you have stage fright, I'm not your start. I'm not a therapist who's going to help you get over stage fright. I will help.
No, you're not.
I will help. I will help you when you have the butterflies, how to channel that and get on stage. Most people that come to me already know they have something to say.
Yep. That's
they just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And I'm the right. But you having something to say may mean you extemporaneously give a talk for 30 minutes off the cuff, and you can do that. Whereas the next client may need to be scripted. And when I say I meet you where you are, I mean, I'm going to work with both of you to figure out how to give the best 15 minutes of your life to that stage.
Well, I dreamed of giving speeches from an age 7 and up, and you have offered me an opportunity to do that. So I want to thank you for helping me realize the literal dreams that I had had. And it's incredible to see it coming together. And I want to thank you for doing that for me, Cody, as a friend and as a mentor and as a fellow pilgrim.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you came along. You know, when I started the idea, and I recruited Robin, and most of this is in my last talk that you can watch on YouTube channel. I really didn't think it was an idea that would take. And I think the reason for that is because I was coming at it from a selfish perspective. How do I build a stage for me to get on, to get my content, to market myself? And who's going to come and watch that?
Right.
But when you take yourself out of that equation and realize what you have and what has been given to you that you can be a steward of, you can do it exponentially anything with it. Now, caveat, I do this, I build this stage for everybody, and you can be on it, but there is a price tag, because this is not a freebie, right?
Right.
I do need to get paid. I do have to pay my vendors and my photographer. I have a world-class videographer who I would say I would rival with any other production company.
Yep.
I have a world-class videographer. I have a world-class producer. I have a world-class makeup artist, all of whom are top in their field. And so it's not free, but it's also not $10,000. And I guarantee you, after being on my stage and getting the content you need, the first paid gig you have will pay for the program.
Oh, totally. So do it. Anybody who's out there watching, do it.
All right. So what did I say was the next one?
The next one's in Frisco, Cody. All you need now is just what do you call them? Announcer. You need a marketer, like an announcer. That's me. I'm a marketing guy.
Okay.
So announcing it is like, I'm doing that for you right now.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was just reading a comment. I was saying you're welcome to the comment from Keith. And then saying thank you to Peter. So Peter, my friend, we are at the end of our time together. Any last parting comments you have?
Oh, I don't have any. I feel like I'm on the spot. Thanks for what?
You're on the spot.
I'm totally on the spot. Yeah. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, and just keep on writing down stuff. Everybody, keep writing it down. Get that journal out. Write it down.
And if you want a journal with Peter's logo on it, give me a buzz. I've got a couple.
Yeah, Cody's got a couple.
I use one every day for my gratitude journal. Anyway,
love it.
Everybody, thanks. We will be back next Tuesday. If you want to be on our stage in Frisco, Texas, I need to know immediately so I can get those plans going. So email me, info@thespeakerscollaborative.com. One that I forgot to mention that is very important is we're putting together a speakers collaborative in Colorado Springs. And while I don't normally curate content, that one is going to be about men's mental health because it's too important to ignore.
I'll be there.
If you want to be in Frisco, I'll have you. If you want to be in Colorado Springs, I'll have you there as well. Peter, thank you for joining us. Where can we find out more information about you?
You can find out about me at petermilnerproperties.com, petermilnerproperties.com, because I am a real estate agent. And that's one of the vehicles. I'm a tent maker to do what I do. So petermilnerproperties.com.
Thank you, Peter Milner Properties, for sponsoring Peter in the last Speakers Collaborative. And thank you, Peter, for joining us. Hang out here for a second. I'm going to say goodbye.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, everybody. I'll see you all next Tuesday.